in the scheme of things.
There is a graph. When I was in college, I had a psychology class, and it's how people do over time. And I'm saying this comment was made in class when they're undirected by heavenly precepts.
Yes.
There's a decline in its
Morally.
sexual perversion, bestiality, cannibalism, and
Yes.
all those
Yes.
depraved things are down at the bottom of that curve, and that's the tendency of societies who are not guided by moral principles.
Exactly. People who, and I've come across some who believe that there is no difference between the morality of a secular society totally and a society that's governed by, and they're not recognizing history. There's a tremendous difference. Where's the passage in the New Testament that shows how the Gentiles had gone completely bankrupt? Romans, the first chapter. And the point was they had a knowledge of God, but they had refused the knowledge they had. And because of that, God gave them up unto a reprobate mind that they should do the things that are not fitting and so on. And so it does. There's a direct relationship or correlation between the foundation of accountability before someone, morality, and the way a society goes. Think about that in 1 Corinthians 15 when Paul said evil companionships corrupt good morals. And he says, the next verse or two, if there's no resurrection, then let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. If there's no ultimate resurrection, no ultimate judgment, let's just do whatever feels good, do it. There's no ultimate consequences except maybe temporarily that we might suffer here. Yes, sir, Josh?
And I'm saying this with the utmost reverence, but there's no reason to believe that God works in such ways today if we disobey Him directly. And there's no reason, like Brother Cooper did, for us to make the assumption that life fell down on top of his head. Well, during the Lord's Supper, his mind shouldn't be where it was. That's
No.
That's an act of God. There's no reason to believe that nonsense anymore, right? So.
No, and at the same time, there are some things that we can do that will bring, like drunkenness, and then the consequences that can come from that. You kill somebody, be killed.
But no immediate.
Not usually, no. But again, every case has to stand and fall on its own.
There's a lot of people that believe that.
Oh yeah, it was Cooper's fault, wasn't it? Shouldn't have been, should have known there. Yeah, I saw him too. That's right. All right, let's move on to the where we are now. We finished the Sermon on the Mount, and we're in Matthew 8 and Luke 7. We pointed out Wednesday night, and we took a little bit of time to notice that at the end of the sermon, the last two verses, the multitudes were what? Astonished at his teaching. Why, Patty? Exactly. He was one who taught with authority and not as the scribes. Wednesday night, for those of you who weren't with us, we went over, we just looked at Matthew's account in chapters 8 and 9, and there are 10 specific miracles that are recorded there. And all of them indicate, basically, he taught with authority. Now he works with authority to show that he had the power of authority or authority that he spoke with. And so also the fact is that Matthew records some of these miracles, some of the deeds that we've already discussed in Mark. So it indicates that Matthew is not necessarily taking a chronological order of Jesus' life, but more of a topical in order to show that. And this is really kind of doctrine since Wednesday night. But Matthew 8, which is 1 through 4 deals with the leper who was cleansed, is actually recorded in Mark, the first chapter. And in Matthew 9, 1 through 17, which deals with the man who was a paralytic. Jesus said, "Son, thy sins be forgiven." Then the call of Matthew or Levi, and then Matthew makes a feast, and then Jesus deals with the wineskins and all that. All of those things are covered earlier in Mark 2. So the point is that Matthew records more of a topical, so you just have to understand that going in. And then notice the areas of our physical existence over which Jesus shows his power. Leprosy, paralysis, fever, demon-possessed people, calm the sea, demons are cast out, another case of paralysis. By the way, when we see palsy, the Old King James and the American Standard uses the word palsy. That's just an abbreviation for paralytic. That's all palsy is, a paralytic. And some of the newer translations will have that. It's an interesting Greek word that is basically the same as we have in our English. He knew the thoughts of those there with the man who was let down, through the roof. Thank you. Brain fog. Chronic female hemorrhage, the one who simply felt like if she could touch the hem of his garment, that she could be healed. Death, that we'll see that with the raising of the widow at Nain's son. And then at the last of Matthew 9, we have somebody who's blind as well as dumb or mute. And so if you categorized all of that, all manner of diseases, the spirit world, natural forces, death and life, Jesus' power over distances, and he knew the thoughts. So he's shown to be over every area of our physical, our mental, and our spiritual existence, as well as nature. It shouldn't surprise us. In John 1, all things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that hath been made. So if he could create everything, then it stands to reason that what?
He could fix it.
He could regulate it, yes. There's a song we sing. Turn to number 41. And we'll go on for that. But 41 is a song we know all real well. Farish, Lord Jesus, the first stanza, ruler of all nature. Well, we'll see that in the calming of the sea. See it really in one sense of raising the widow of Nain's son. Thou of God and man the Son. That's his deity as well as his what? His humanity. Thee will I cherish, thee will I honor. Thou my soul's glory, joy, and crown. Let's sing just the first verse. Oh, fairest Lord Jesus, ruler of all nature, hope of God and man the Son, thee will I cherish, thee will I honor, thou my soul's glory, joy, and crown. One of my favorite songs, and it speaks of what we'll be studying about in these verses. All right, let's go on to our next point here, and just keep that in the back of your mind. That every area of human existence, Jesus shows his power over. Thoughts, disease, death. I can't think of anything he doesn't. Now, here's where we are. A centurion's servant is healed in Capernaum. We want to remember, we've spent a long time on the Sermon on the Mount, but Capernaum is up here. If you let the Sea of Galilee be like a clock, Capernaum is about 11 o'clock over here. And he's been on, a level place on the mount, and now he goes into the city. And let's read both accounts, and you might just put you a mark or your finger in Luke. And let's go to Matthew first. Let's read now. Matthew 8, 5 through 13. Let's see. Michelle, if you will, why don't you read 5 through 10.
Okay. Now when Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him and pleading with him, saying, Lord, my servant is lying at home paralyzed, dreadfully tormented. And Jesus said to him, I will come and heal him. And the centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy that you should come under my roof, but only speak a word, and my servant will be healed. For I also am a man under authority, having soldiers under me. And I say to this one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it. And when Jesus heard it, he marveled, and he said to those who followed, assuredly, I say to you, I have not found such a great faith, not even in Israel. And I say to you that many will come from the east and west and sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven.
Go ahead and read through 13.
But the sons of the kingdom will be cast out into outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then Jesus said to the centurion, go your way as you have believed, so let it be done for you. And his servant was healed that same hour.
Yeah, it was immediate, instantaneous. There are a couple of things that will be stated here in Matthew's account that are not in Luke's account. If you, verse 11, and 12, and 13, where he deals, and of course you will remember, Matthew is writing primarily with what kind of audience in mind? Jewish. And so he says, many shall come from the east and the west and sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Those coming from the east and the west, contextually with the centurion, would indicate that he was anticipating Gentiles coming into the kingdom. That's right. And they will sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, but the sons of the kingdom shall be cast forth in outer darkness. And so he tells the servant of the centurion, go your way, your servant is healed. However, we find a little different additional information in Luke's account. The centurion asked Jesus to heal his servant, but it was not personally. How did he ask? How did he work that? That's right. He sent some of first. There were two deputations, as it were. He sent first of all elders of Israel, their own people, and then when Jesus answered, "Yes, I'll come," and so he's coming, and then when evidently word gets back to the centurion, and so he sends out some of his friends and says, "You don't need to come. I'm not worthy for you to come under my house, and I'm not worthy to come to you. You don't need to come to my house, and I'm not worthy to come to you. You just speak the word, and my servant will be healed." And Jesus looked at him and marveled, saying, "I have not seen so great faith, no, not in Israel." He marveled. Only two occasions Jesus marveled. Here, on this occasion with the centurion, concerning his faith in the Lord, and then at Nazareth, in Mark 6, verse 6. At Nazareth, because of their unbelief. And that we'll see that. Now let's move to Luke 7. Luke 7. And in verses 2 through 10, we have this account. Kyle, if you would read that for us. Luke 7, 2 through 10. And since the reading is fresh on our minds, let's see what we can pick out here that's a little additional information. Okay?
And a certain centurion servant who was dear unto him was sick and ready to die. And when he heard of Jesus, he sent unto him the elders of the Jews, beseeching him that he would heal him from his sickness. And when they came to Jesus, they besought him instantly, saying that he was worthy of whom he should do this. For he loveth our nation, and he hath built us a synagogue. Then Jesus went with them, and when he was now not far from the house, the centurion sent friends to him, saying unto him, Lord,
All right, thanks, Colin. One quick thing. What was the relation that this servant had to the centurion that's noted in verse 2? It's not mentioned in Matthew. He was dear to him, yes, close to him. Another thing that we mentioned just a moment ago, rather than just going to him personally, in verse 3, he sent what? Elders of the Jews, asking him that he would come and save his servant. Another thing that is mentioned here that is not mentioned in Matthew, something that he had done for the Jewish nation. He built a synagogue there at Capernaum, and that had evidently a good reputation. He's worthy for you to do this. He loves our nation. He built our synagogue. We most understand that this fellow was probably what we later find as a proselyte of the gate. He would have been a Gentile who accepted Jehovah God, the God of Israel. He would have kept many of the moral commandments of the law, but he would not have been circumcised. Could not go, of course, into the temple. But sometimes in Acts, the book of Acts, ye men of Israel, and all ye that fear God, God-fearers, would be among those. They feared God, but they actually had not succumbed, or not succumbed, but they'd not been circumcised. And they weren't true Jews physically, but they understood who God was. And that seems to be the person here, the centurion. A couple other things. Look at verse, he sent elders first, and then verse 6 of Luke 7, when he was now not far from the house, he sent what? He sent friends to tell him, I am not worthy that you should come under my roof. And neither I thought myself worthy to come to you. Are you thinking with me? What is the very first beatitude that is here displayed?
Poor in spirit.
Blessed are the poor in spirit. This is exactly what Jesus meant when I need you so desperately. You are so great and I am so little. That's the idea here that he so beautifully expresses. Then his confidence in Jesus' power through his word. Look at verse 7. But say the word, and my servant shall be healed. And then his appreciation of and understanding of what it means to be obedient. He said, I also am a man set under authority. That is, I have a position where I am under the authority of others. I know what it means for me to obey. And I also know what it means for people to obey me. For I tell one, come, and he comes, to another, go, and he goes. And so, based on that, think how he's reasoning. I know what authority is all about. And I know that at my word, people move. I remember hearing people say that when General Eisenhower, and of course this would apply to others, but when General Dwight D. Eisenhower was general of the Allied forces over Europe, he could speak the word and millions of men would move. And here, this Roman centurion understands, I can speak and I know who you are. All you've got to do is say the word and my servant will be healed. Great, great faith in the Lord. So no wonder in verse 9, when Jesus heard these things, he marveled at him and turned and said unto the multitude that followed him, I say to you, I have not found so great faith, no, not in Israel. And those who were sent returned to the house, and when they got there, what did they find? They found the man whole. Let's answer our questions. I've got some charts, some lessons on this. Down on page 58, 1a, Matthew 8, 8 and 9 indicate why Jesus marveled at this man's great faith. What did he believe the Lord could do? I just gave you the answer. Only have to do what? Speak the word and his servant would be healed. B, What also did he say which indicated his exalted esteem of Jesus? He wasn't what? He wasn't worthy for Jesus to come under his roof. When Jesus replied, "I have not found so great faith, no, not in Israel," what did that imply towards the Jews at large? A lack of faith, yes. Remember that the centurion was a Roman, a Gentile, not a Jew. When Jesus said, "Many shall come from the east and west, shall sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven," we've already mentioned this. What was he predicting? The entrance of the Gentiles into the kingdom. Who were the sons of the kingdom? That would be who? Jews. Jews who had the blessings of everything that God had intended. This miracle shows Jesus' power over at least two areas of human experience. What are they? One is power over...
Sickness and distance.
That's right. Sickness and distance. Sickness and distance. That's exactly right. I want to go through just a few things with you. We've already mentioned some of this. I wanted to show you a couple of pictures of it. This, you've seen this, but I wanted to emphasize it here. Here we are now in Capernaum. And when I was over there in Israel back in 2009, this is some of our group. In fact, I think Leon is there, Bob Waldron is there. But anyway, these are the ruins of a synagogue there in Capernaum. And, there would, do you see these steps right here? If I understand things correctly, in a synagogue or synagogus, a place of meeting, it's kind of like our assemblies now. You would go in the door, the entrance would maybe be here, and there would be a wall, and then it would be like your amen corner. You'd have seats going this way, that way, and this way. So it would make almost like a horseshoe. And then the reader of the law and the prophets would be in the front, and he could just kind of go around, and there were basically two or three what we would see look like bleachers that would go all the way, and that was a common synagogue. It's interesting that these blocks on the bottom are the remains of the first century synagogue. Now think, let that sink in. That we possibly, and I say possibly, could be looking at what this centurion was responsible for building for these Jews. So, I think one thing going to a place, at least pictures and all that, this is not, once upon a time in a far off land. These are real events, real people. All of this is just as real as we're sitting and standing here. And I think that's helpful for us. Several things. One lesson, we'll want to remember a centurion, the word in our English century, 100, usually a captain of roughly 100 men. He would have been a Gentile, a Roman, fewer spiritual advantages, as I already mentioned, possibly what later was called a proselyte of the gate, recognized Jehovah God but did not submit to circumcision. And several things he recognizes: Jesus' power to cure disease, and there possibly could be, remember in John 4, when Jesus went to Canaan, a nobleman, don't confuse the two, a nobleman came from Capernaum to Cana and besought Jesus to go over to Capernaum to heal his son, not servant, but his son. And what did Jesus do? You remember? Yes, he was healed immediately when Jesus said, your son is healed. And then when the servants went back, they knew what time Jesus said that. When they went back, they found out on the next day, it was the same hour of the day that he told us, It could very well have been that he had heard what had happened earlier. The distance was irrelevant to Jesus' power, and he understood that. His own littleness when compared to Jesus' greatness, or his humility. Brother Gene answered that a while ago. The first quality, blessed are the poor in spirit. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Then the nature of authority, as well as Jesus' authority. I am also a man set under authority. And I tell one, he goes, and he goes. To another, come, and he cometh. All Jesus had to do was speak, and his servant could be healed. And then the second thing, anything on that, anybody? I'm just kind of going through some of this we've already covered. But Jesus' compliment, I've not found yet among any Jews, I've not found so great faith, no, not in Israel. He did more with less, and the Jews had done less with more. You think about the Jews, they had the law as a schoolmaster to bring them to Christ. They had the prophets to remind them of the law. They had the Psalms, many of which were messianic in nature. Then they had the preaching of John the Baptist, saying, it's here. The kingdom is here, it's nigh. And, they had all of that. And yet they did so little with it. Brother McGarvey made a comment that I thought was so good on this passage. Men of no faith regard Jesus and his religion as unworthy of them. Faith reverses the scales of judgment, and the greater one's faith in Jesus, the less his comparative estimate of himself. He goes down as Jesus goes up. I found that to be true of a lot of people. That people who are arrogant and think they have no use for Jesus, no use for the religion of Christ. But those who say, I really see my weaknesses, my frailties, I need the Lord's help. Those are more in the line of people of faith. A couple of things on his marveling. Jesus marveled at his faith, caused by at least two things: the greatness of his faith in comparison to the lack of such among the Jews. Those Jews we just mentioned, educated under the law and prophets, prepared by John's preaching, should have faith in Jesus already. It was expected out of them. However, this man was reared in heathenism, and his great faith indicted their little faith. And his marveling at his faith also indicates that faith is not something given by direct operation of the Holy Spirit. Our Calvinist friends say that God gives you saving faith, and when you believe, you're saved. But faith, we know, comes by what? Hearing. And also, if Jesus had given him faith, there would have been no reason to marvel. He was expected, If so, Jesus would not have marveled. Also, he would not have complimented him, because the centurion would have had no choice. He would have done basically what he was programmed to do. Furthermore, he would not have marveled at unbelief in Nazareth, since he would not have given faith to the people in Nazareth who had not believed. Such false teaching is also irreconcilable with Jesus' benevolent and loving character. The Lord's not willing that what? Any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. The faith is not a miraculous gift. Rather, it's simply belief based on evidence. And scriptural belief comes the same way we believe any other fact. The evidence is there, and then we have confidence. The word I like to use as a synonym for faith and belief is confidence. You understand that it can't be any other way. And I mentioned this a while ago. Only 2 times Jesus is said to marvel: here and in Mark 6, here at the centurion's belief, and there in Mark 6 at the Nazareth's unbelief. And 3 more quick things. The Bible speaks, and this is a great lesson for us to think about in other passages as well. The Bible speaks of some doing something when actually they did that thing through others, not personally. He is said to go to Jesus in Matthew's account. However, in Luke's account, he went through the elders sent to Jesus and his friends. Another quick example, Matthew 16, verse 18. Upon this rock I will build my church. Well, how did Jesus personally build the church, or did he do it through the apostles and their teaching? He did it through the latter, yeah. And so the apostles and the preaching of the gospel, the church was built. But yet Jesus is the ultimate reason behind the church. Jesus' statement anticipates Gentiles coming into the kingdom. We already mentioned that. And then judgment will be based in part on what we do with the opportunities we have. He had fewer opportunities, he made more of them. And these Jews, he said, the sons of the kingdom will be cast into everlasting fire. That's in Matthew's account, back in Matthew, the 8th chapter, where he says in verse, it's on the right-hand page here. And the sons of the kingdom, verse 12, shall be cast forth into outer darkness. There shall be the weeping and gnashing of teeth. Jesus said to the centurion, go your way. As thou hast believed, so be it done unto thee. And the servant was healed in that hour. Another quick thing that I don't have on this, but I think we already mentioned it. The healing of that servant was, took a while, or it was instantaneous. It was instantaneous. Very similar to the next in Luke 7, which is the resurrect or the raising of the widow at Nain's son. And he had health. He was able to talk. I mean, it was not a case of, he slowly got better. Or Lee was telling me about, she read the news where somebody was pronounced dead, and then when they got to the morgue, they were in a body bag, and she was gasping for air. And y'all see that in the news? Angela, you did. Not a case like that. Then they took her to the hospital, and she died the next day. She was about there anyway. But the case of miracles in the Bible, the reason I want to emphasize this as our last point, is I had a good discussion with a lady not too long ago who said, I still believe we have miracles today. And I said, I don't deny that God does things, that God is behind the curtain of nature. I do not deny His providence. I do not deny that people who are sick get well, but not the nature of the miracles of the Bible. The nature of the miracles of the Bible were a suspension of natural law. Here's a person who's dead, he's been dead, and he's raised from the dead, and it's instantaneous. It doesn't take a long time to get better. Or here's a person who is a paralytic. And in fact, it says he's a paralytic to the point that he's at the point of what? Death. Paralysis, if I understand from dictionaries correctly, Bible dictionaries, that there were all different kinds. And you could finally, the paralysis would get into to the lungs. You couldn't breathe. You're gasping. And everybody knows you're at the point of death. And then all of a sudden you're well. So all of these things show the nature of divine miracles. And there's nothing like that going on today. The point or purpose, rather, of miracles, whether it be in the Old or the New Testament, was to signify that the man performing the miracles was what? Speaking from God. Yeah. Has the word been certified? Has it been finalized? Yes. And so the purpose for miracles has been supplied and is completed. All right, it's a good time to stop. Lord willing, we'll pick up with the widow's son being raised from the dead. He was on a bier, B-I-E-R. You know what that was? It was a type of an open casket, because the Jews would not usually bury people in coffins as we do. They would bury them in what? Caves, and just let the body, like Jesus was wrapped in a linen cloth and put in a cave, and the cave was sealed, and that was common. Okay, we'll stop there. Here you go, buddy.
Thank